I'm going to be building a SP hydraulic cylinder. This is what drives the Centerline hydraulic driven mud pump. The SP cylinder requires less oil than the HP, however will not produce as much mud pressure as the HP model. You know it's an SP model by the fact that the tube, the ID of the cylinder tube, which is where the piston of the cylinder goes, is 3.5 inches. The HP model is 4 inches, the XP model is 4 1/4. The heads differences are on the cylinder head for an SP, you'll have a 2-line head and a no-line head, which is notated by the concentric circles around the bore and the head. All the parts will correlate with that. You'll have a 2-line screw-in gland and a no-line screw-in gland, a 2-line buffer seal retainer and no-line buffer seal retainer, a no-line stainless steel ring and a 2-line stainless steel ring. The no-line, you'll have a no-line for both SP and HP. The no line denotes the size of the brass bushing here in which the cylinder shaft rides in. The 2-line denotes the size of this brass bushing. The only difference in an HP and an SP no line head is the size of this bore, which allows for a different size cylinder tube to be fitted into it. We begin assembling a hydraulic cylinder by first cleaning the cylinder tube with brake cleaner. Once you have cleaned the cylinder tube, tape off the ends so that it can be painted. Leave an 1/8 inch to 3/16 gap between where the chamfer ends and you begin your tape, because this will be exposed outside of the cylinder head and you don't want it to rust, so you want it to get painted. Once you've taped off both ends, you can bring it over to the painting area and give it a couple of coats of paint. I usually paint it once and then go back and clean other parts as the first coat is slightly drying, and then come back and apply a second coat. While your first coat of paint is drying, take your cylinder rod. We call it a cylinder rod. It has both the shaft and the piston in one piece with flats on the ends. It has a small threaded hole on one end and a large threaded hole on the other. And while the first layer is drying, take a finer grit 320 sand wheel, and all the edges of the flats are on the round part, you're going to want to smooth those out so there's no sharpness to them, because that will cut the seals as you install them. And you don't want to take much out. You're not trying to get into the chrome. You just want to take off the sharp edge, and that's it. Once you have removed all the sharp edges on the ends, go ahead and clean the shaft. Some brake cleaner, remove any particulate matter from it. I try to avoid touching the table with the shaft once I started cleaning it. You got that cleaned up. Stand it up with a paper towel. Take 4 standard pressure piston rings. They'll be different. The HPs will be slightly larger than these, and the XPs slightly larger than those. These are a nodular piston ring. Take the opening of the piston ring, go into the second groove, place the opening into that groove, and then just press around it, and it will snap into place very easily. Once you place one in, move it to make sure there's nothing dragging and moves freely. Then take the one above it, place the opening in the groove, press it around, and flip the shaft over, and repeat the process. Once you've got all 4 piston rings in there, face the openings in the rings in different directions. I like to go north, south, east, west with them. They're all facing different directions. Put a little bit of lubricate 101 motor assembly grease on them. This is to help them slide into the cylinder tube. Pause the video. Once you have lubricated the piston rings, take the piston ring compressor, place it over the shaft, slide it over the rings, and using a 1/4 inch ratchet, small extension, tighten the bands on the piston ring compressor. As you tighten it, it tries to misalign until it gets fairly tight, so if you'll turn it a few times and then realign it, it'll work better for you. Tighten it down good and tight, it'll compress all those piston rings so you can drop them right in. Now place it to the side. At this point, I usually put a second coat on the cylinder tube. While the second coat of paint is drying, take all your parts that have the lines on them and go ahead and blow them to make sure there's no dust on them. First thing we put our seals in is our heads. Take your heads and flip them upside down. The cylinder tube end is facing you. You'll take your SP seal kit, remove the 2 largest O-rings and backups. Take the O-ring, place it down in the groove, and just work it around. And you repeat the process on both heads. Pause. Using a pick, take and place it on top of the O-ring and kind of press it down just to make sure the O-ring is pushed down all the way so that the backup will sit over it. Next goes your hard backup. What this does is it acts as a stiff backer for the O-ring to keep the O-ring from flexing too much and letting it blow out. And you just simply place it above the O-ring and work it in the same way as you did the O-ring. That you flip the cylinder head over and remove from your seal kit the 4 smaller orange backups and the 4 O-rings. Take 2 of the orange backups and place them all the way at the bottom of the screw-in gland portion of the cylinder. Then take your 4 O-rings, separate them out and pull. You'll notice that 2 are smaller. Separate the larger and smaller O-rings. Place the larger ones aside, take the smaller O-ring, place it on top of that backup. And then you take your second backup and place it on top of the O-ring. Go back to your larger of the 2 O-rings, and there's a groove that is sitting above all this right in here. This O-ring will sit in. At this point, I'll put a few dabs of grease on these O-rings just to help hold them in place until it's all assembled. After you've finished putting the seals in the cylinder heads, we'll go to screw-in glands. Inside your seal kit will be 2 white rings. They will only fit, the ODs will fit out of the ring, but if you'll notice, the ID is different on each one. One is thicker than the other. If you look at the screwing glands, you can tell which shelf on which gland is wider. So you place the one that matches on there. There'll be an obvious difference if you put the wrong one in there. Put the small one, the bigger one, you place it in, you can see the shelf through the seal. Place those. And next comes your U-cups. They're the same way. If you look at the back side of them, you can see one's wider than the other. The front side of the U-cup has a dip in it, and the purpose behind this dip, as oil pressure hits that dip, it presses outwards on the sides, causing the outer lip to press tighter and the inner lip to press tighter, meaning the more pressure you place against this seal, the better it seals. You match the ones to where they go. You simply work it in and press it in all the way around to make sure it's seated. And you can look here and you can see if there's a gap below it anywhere. Same way with the other one. After those comes your buffer seal retainers. Again, these will match with your no line and your 2-line. One buffer seal retainer will be this tan color with this gray ring. If you look at the gray ring, there is a square edge and a round edge when it's outside. The round edge faces into the seal. I always place it face down on my hand like this. I take the screwing gland, I place it over it, and press it down on there. Or else you'll be fighting that gray ring falling out. The tan seal with the gray ring will always go either the 1-line or the 2-line buffer seal retainer. The no-line buffer seal retainer will always get this seal. It is a opaque white color and also has an opaque white ring with it. And that ring fits in there as the other one does. In the same process, I flip this buffer seal over, retainer over, stick it in there. These buffer seal retainers will fit in the back of the screwing gland like so. Then flip the glands over. And now comes your wiper. The no-line one always gets the wiper with the O-ring around it. The 2-line or the 1-line will get the one without. You simply drop the wiper in. Take the matching stainless steel ring with 2 lines, place it on top. And you have a spring ring in your kit. Find the opening in the spring ring and separate one side of it and start that side in the groove directly above the stainless steel ring and just work it around into the hole. I'll set that aside. We're not going to put the wiper in the no line. I'll wait until afterwards to do that, because when you assemble it, when you press this over the shaft, it will push this wiper out of place and then you'll have to fight it back in. It's easier to leave it out until after you assemble it. The paint on your cylinder tube will most likely not be completely cured, but that's okay because there's no need to touch the paint when you assemble it. Simply take the tape off. Take this handy dandy block tool here, touching the ends, set it on the block, roughly center it in the opening in the block, and pull the other tape off. Now, you can take your cylinder tube, rod, stand it up, and you can drop it in the tube gently. It'll go right in. At this point, you're ready to install the cylinder head. Whichever end you have up, you can check This is the large hole end. And I know that the large hole end will be the no-line head for an SP, because the shaft is different sizes on both ends, and the holes are different sizes, so it only fit one way. Take some 30 weight motor oil. And lubricate the O-ring thoroughly. Also, the O-rings inside the snout of the cylinder head, you're going to want to lubricate those as well. It's much easier to lubricate them now than when you have a shaft sticking out of the hole. Take a little bit of what oil on your finger, put it on just the edge of this tube to help it slide into the O-ring. Very gently line this cylinder head up over that shaft. We'll wait until it drops there. Now all I usually do is lower it down, cupping this in, let the shaft rest on the block there. Lubricate the O-ring on the other cylinder head. Lubricate the O-rings inside the head. With the residual that's on your finger, lubricate that edge on the tube. And press down on this side of the cylinder. And very carefully so as not to damage the bronze. Start that in there. Once you get it there, it will try to bind a little bit. Just simply lift on the tube a little bit and it'll go right in. You now have the heads on the tube and the shaft. Take two of the long bolts that are below the cylinder table and put them through two of the holes that are on the cylinder. It's actually important which direction you put the bolts through, because of our clamping system over here, which I'll show you in a moment. If you put the bolts on backwards, you'll have a difficult time clamping and holding it. But if you always do it, or you put it in the top away from you, from the left side, the bottom close to you from the left side, you'll always do it right. At this point, we'll turn the cylinder, and using our hook on the table, we'll slightly rotate it and catch that bolt in the hook. Using an 1 3/8" on the bolt head, and 1 7/16" on the nut, tighten the nut 3 turns at a time, and then go to the other nut, back and forth, until the cylinder heads have bottomed out on the tube. Once you've tightened those two bolts down, you begin putting your screwing glands in. Start with your buffer seal retainer. Lubricate the shaft a little bit. Kind of roll the seal into oil. Hold the other end of the shaft so it won't turn on you, and just kind of push and rotate. And go right on there. Go ahead and lubricate the outside of the aluminum. The reason for this, it kind of helps it slide inside the screwing a little better once you rotate it over there. Lubricate the seal on the inside of the screwing gland. Hold the other end of the shaft and twist and rotate. At this point, you don't want to move the shaft. You don't want to move the screwing gland itself, you only want to move the shaft. And you don't want to move it inwards without moving it all at once, because if you press this in and you push the shaft and this is stopped once it's thread, your buffer seal retainer can come out slightly, and if it does, when you go to tighten it down, if it gets crooked in any way, it'll bind between the head and the screwing gland, and you'll have to take it back apart. So what's best is just not move it. Lubricate these spaces so there's no threads on the screwing gland. Using copper coat anti-seize, thoroughly coat the thread, but not heavily. Ensure that every thread is coated, but you don't want it thickly in there because it will build up as you tighten the screwing gland in, and will actually build to the point it will stop it from turning. And you'll have to let it seep out of the threads before you can tighten it anymore. Alright, once you've coated the threads, press the shaft in slowly until your threads make contact and stop there. Using your cylinder seal removal tool, don't insert it all the way unless you just easily can. Get it well enough it will hold the screwing gland, and start the threads by hand. And run it in several threads. Once you've got it in enough threads, go ahead and tap the tool in. And you can tighten it the rest of the way. When you get 3 to 4 threads from flush, slow down and run the screwing gland slowly. So at this point you should be coming close to contacting the O-rings inside. You don't want to press those O-rings out of place, so you don't want to meet them too fast. You'll start to feel resistance as you hit the O-rings. If you feel a lot of resistance and then suddenly a release in resistance, you may have actually caught an O-ring and cut it, so you may want to disassemble it and check it out. The screwing gland should come to a point where it'll bottom out. And it just did. Once it bottoms out, go ahead and give it a good snugging. Your screwing gland should end up flush or very close to it with the face of the cylinder head. If not, you may have an issue. Go ahead and remove your cylinder seal removal tool. And this being the no-line end, we didn't install our wiper, and we're going to do that now. Go ahead and lubricate the wiper. Slide it over the shaft. Using a pick or something of such, press the wiper back into place. Once you've got it pressed in there, take your stainless steel ring, place it above the wiper, into the spring ring just as before. Go ahead and press on the spring ring. Usually doing it this way it doesn't seat as easily as it does the other way, just to make sure it snaps in all the way. And that end is completely assembled. You may take and wipe the excess off of it. We'll clean it more thoroughly when we're done completely assembling it. After that, unhook it from the hook on the table and spin the cylinder around. At this point, you're going to move the shaft inward a little bit. A little bit of pushing it should go. But remember, it's going to be a little more difficult now because you have the seals on this end of the cylinder holding the shaft. Same way as before. Take the rubber seal retainer, put a little bit of oil in the shaft, roll it, and push and roll. You really don't need to hold this into the shaft anymore because the seals are holding it for you.
That's the only place I know of, unless you look in the lockers, maybe the 3 lockers. Everywhere. Alright, thank you. Yeah.
Again, lubricate these unthreaded faces. Thoroughly coat the threads in copper coat. And because this one's a little more difficult to lubricate, what I usually do is just rotate. I copper coat one side, then go ahead and roll it and hook it. And that leaves the side I have uncopper coated more easily accessible. Once you've copper coated that, same way as before, go ahead and move the cylinder in just till the threads make contact. Stop. Then use the tool to start it by hand. You've got several threads in. Remember to slow down. You got about 3 or 4 threads sticking out. Again, the screwing gland should bottom out at some point. And we've reached that point. Give it a good snug. There we go. Once you've got the cylinder mostly assembled, you can take a couple of these long bolts here. Their only purpose is to hold the cylinder together until it is placed on a mud pump. Once you have placed these bolts in there, go ahead and hook your big bolt on the other hook. Now, never hook the smaller bolts on there because the tension of pulling on those will actually rip the threads out of the cylinder head. You should only need 1 inch and 7/16. Break the nuts loose and you should be able to spin them off by hand. Now, you can put the fittings on the top of it. The cylinders get one long 90 and one short 90. Your long 90 goes on the outer end, which is, with a small hole, which will be on the shift end of the mud pump. The shorter one goes on the mud end of the mud pump. It is important to put these fittings in before you install the cylinder, because you will not be able to turn the fitting on the mud end once you have it placed installed in the center section. A little WD-40 on the O-rings of the fittings. And very important, there is a gap in the threads where that washer sits. You never want to tighten it past where that washer fits in the gap. If it comes to a point where it stops, like there, and it's not pointed far enough to where you need it, tighten until it stops, and then back it to where you want it to point. Right there. At this point, you can center the shaft up and then take some brake cleaner paper towel and clean all the excess oil and copper coat off, and you have finished assembling a hydraulic cylinder.